Good morning. My name's Nick Howden. I'm moderating this stage. Your headphones will make everything sound, I think, better than they did to begin with. The buzzing should have stopped. So if you want to put those on, that'd be great. These sessions really about you. So if you want to use the Me2 app, which is web.me2.com, and feed your questions in there, I'll pick them up and I'll put them to our esteemed panelists. We've got two problems and one solution, if you look at it like that, in terms of Ben Willcox from British Gymnastics, Blain, D2i Systems, the solution, potentially, and Craig Mathie from Bournemouth Sevens. It's sensible, perhaps, we're looking here, obviously, at the question of what technology can do to help manage events in multiple locations and large sites. To start with Ben, British Gymnastics has to jump, stretch and twist between multiple venues across the country, I take it. How much can you rely on technology to ensure a sort of safe, agile landing?
I mean, we really rely on technology for all of our events now. It's changed quite a lot over the last few years, but now all of our events are essentially competitions. We do have some performance events as well, but the vast majority are competitions. So therefore we have all registered gymnasts who have to enter into their competitions, and coaches and judges and other officials. So all of that is through a centralised online entry system, which we developed over the last, say, 5 or so years. Prior to that, everything was paper-based, and it was a massive manual process taking hours and hours to administer, you know, the vast number of events that we'd hold over a year. But now we've managed to streamline the vast majority of that process now, so everything's done online. So the gymnasts become members online, they enter the events online, they pay online, they upload their performance music online. So it's really core to everything that we do now in events.
How much is your event part of a bigger umbrella event? British Gymnastics going into an athletics championship or something like that?
The majority of them are standalone. We do have some involvement in some of the larger events such as Commonwealth Games, that kind of thing, but the vast majority are sort of standalone gymnastics events.
And those are across the country, so we're talking about multiple venues in multiple parts of the country?
Exactly, yeah, and the venues range from small sports centres with hardly any sort of network infrastructure, or some don't have Wi-Fi, anything like that, to big arenas. So we do quite a few events at arenas now where they've obviously got the technology infrastructure to support exactly what we need on site.
Okay. Craig, can I just pass that one to you? You've got a lot of events in one locale, sort of under the Bournemouth umbrella. What's your problem?
So just to give you a bit of an insight into who we are and what we do, we're Bournemouth Sevens Festival. Takes place once a year over the late May bank holiday. We welcome 400 sports teams and about 30,000 people to a field. And basically our issue is exactly that. They're coming to a field, and we know what technology is required to deliver events successfully and probably more importantly safely. So our issue is ensuring that we have all of the relevant bits of technology we need to make sure that can happen, and coordinating those on a greenfield site, essentially, I'd say, is probably our biggest issue.
You've been involved aptly for 7 years, I think I'm right in saying. So how much has it changed, that process? And you must have spoken about when Bournemouth Sevens started, which was a few teams on one pitch, probably, was it?
Yeah. So Bournemouth Sevens started originally 24 teams expected in the first year, ended up with 96. And at that point, it was just Roger, who's the CEO and still owns the festival, and his wife and one member of staff. And we've grown sort of year on year, adding new sports in. So we started with rugby and netball, now have dodgeball, hockey. So we've seen growth in that, as well as the growth in the original tournaments. And the growth in the festival has coincided with the growth in the size of the team, the ability of the team to bring new ideas to the table, and probably concurrently the increase in technology and systems that we use to deliver the event. So as the festival's got bigger, we've seen the amount of technology that we use increase almost we can't even quantify how much it's grown in that time.
Yeah. Matt, just to bring you in, how much is, you can see the different kind of problems in terms of technology these guys have. How much has your solution changed over, if we say 15 years, which is when Ben was involved with Gymnastics 15 years, how much has it changed in that 15 years, the technological solutions you can bring to help these guys?
The solutions have changed rapidly, and it's everything's nowadays cloud-based, which is starting to allow technologies to connect, really. And the more you can connect the different facets of an event or an event's business means that these guys have a better visibility of their events and their business. So the landscape is changing more and more about connectivity to where the data is and where the intelligence is, but then also with third parties working together. So it's more of an approach that's changed. The technology's kind of always been there, but there's an approach to actually give further intelligence and centralise everything so that these guys can actually see anything at a drop of a hat, whether that's physically at an event or in the office overseeing multiple events in multiple areas. So to do that, really, the technology solution provider needs to work with multiple other providers and bring that together to allow these guys to kind of see an oversight of both the event, multiple events, and then ultimately the business that is made up of the events.
The first element, I guess, is safety, like it is with all events. And how much have you got a particularly sort of safety solution, D2i Systems, that will help events such as these to convey that information? And I'd like to come to you guys to find out what you've got in store to make sure all of your sites are safe all of the time.
Yeah, so D2i specialises in software development, but we have a number of off-the-shelf modules that feed a central database. So when we talk safety, I mean, there's elements that are access control safety. We work with many different clients that are maybe security aware because they're military, or with the kind of local police to make sure that the site is safe. And so we have access control systems that can be monitored from a kind of joint control room that allows a feed of information through and highlight security problems should there be one, right down to an individual person, an event level, or a business security thing. But then also with other modules, when we talk about safety, there's kind of health and safety and CDM regulations. So the key to what we do really is taking all those elements and feeding it into one database that's cloud-based that allows an events business to oversee everything at any given time, no matter what level you're at, whether you're a senior manager down to someone on the ground. Centralising that and having it in the cloud means that you have it in real time and you can be in any location geographically.
Ben, who do you work with first and foremost, I guess, in terms of technology provider, and what's your sort of safety solution in managing all of those sort of facets?
And we actually try and develop most of our systems in-house, which we've sort of built up over the last probably 10 years or so. So we use a customer relationship management system, which basically drives our whole membership database system. And all of our other systems feed into that as a central database. So there are obviously, as Matt was saying, a lot of layers to the whole sort of security and safety aspect. One of the things that is really valuable for us is having a good accreditation system at our events. So we've actually built our own system on top of the CRM platform that we use for membership. And at every event we make sure that everybody who's attending, obviously not the audience, but all of the officials and coaches, gymnasts, are accredited on the system. They only have access to the certain zones that they're allowed to have access based on their role, and obviously stewards on every access point. But then it goes a sort of step further for us in terms of safety of the gymnasts themselves, that are part of our online entry process through our event management system means that they can only enter if they're the right level of membership, so therefore have the right insurance level to cover their activities. Coaches have to have the correct award level to be able to coach gymnastics at that particular level. So that's another aspect that's maybe a bit more specific to our sport, right. But it's something that's really important to the whole core of our events that we run.
And by the same note, accreditation will help you monitor who's going where at what time as well.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, our system isn't quite as sophisticated as scanning people in and out of various access points, because it is very labour intensive and cost intensive to be able to put that in place. But we have things physically printed on the pass with the zones very clear, so that the stewards can basically deny access to those people who shouldn't be, for example, on the field of play, to stop press and media people accessing areas that they shouldn't, which is one of the issues that we have.
And that's technology replacing people in terms of looking at whether you're allowed in or not. You'll be scanned and told whether you're not.
Yeah, but a lot of it is built into our online registration system. So for the gymnast entry, that will automatically produce them an accreditation for their particular zones. Media and press people can register through our online platform and therefore gain accreditation to zones that they're allowed access to.
Right, okay. And Craig, in terms of accreditation at Bournemouth Sevens, same sort of principle applies?
Yeah, very much so. So in terms of safety more generally, we use technology to support that fundamentally across the board. So that comes from obviously e-ticketing initially, tickets being scanned on arrival and being replaced with wristbands. That whole accreditation process, checking people into our site, is obviously facilitated through a technology network. We've used that in the past to work with the police, for instance, who've had maybe intelligence to say that a certain individual's coming to the event or something. What that then gives us the ability to do is highlight that individual. When they arrive on site, they pop up. So that kind of safety element is really integral to everything we do. And then when obviously people kind of carry on into the site, we have a site-wide CCTV network, which again is all kind of powered through through technology, sits in the crowd through our on-site network, and we then put that into our multi-agency control room, which again is technology focused. So it's actually amazing how much of the technology that we use in our event is driven to keeping people safe and secure. Our health and safety team use a cloud-based app that we have access to in our control room to highlight any issues. Our fire safety officer has the same. So, I mean, Matt mentioned earlier about the kind of the crucial element of cloud-based systems, and actually fundamental in almost everything that we talk about in these kind of sessions is that ability to transmit information around the site to various points. So I obviously sit as our Silver Commander at our event looking after safety, and have a phone or a tablet on me, at which point I can check all of the different levels of our event, whether that be from a crowd management point of view, if our fire safety officers spotted anything that requires immediate action. So all of that information is consolidated into one place, is checked in our multi-agency control room, and that, none of that would be possible without technology, I guess, making it happen. So.
Just to stay with you and Bournemouth, what's the most recent bit of technology that you've brought in to make your life easier? Is it a development of something you've had before, or is there something new that's come into that process?
I would say probably we moved to an online ticketing model with a big provider 2 years ago, and the level of scanning and ability to get people into our event kind of really changed at that point. The increase in the number of people that want to pay by card coming from a completely different angle. So we now have 50 or 60 till points around our site, all of which need a PDQ machine, which connects to the network. Our tills, last year we introduced an EPOS system to replace traditional cash registers, which all feeds into a central back office, so our cash office can see at any one point how the event's going, and we've been able to make processes simpler by having that. So if, for instance, anyone needs any assistance, there's a help button on the tills which ports straight to our till engineer on site, who can then go and resolve that issue there and then. That's a world apart from a member of bar staff having to go and find a supervisor who has to radio into a security man to and that kind of process. So technology makes life easier, I guess, and then more efficient, and the end result is much better. So.
Matt, what's the next thing that's going to come to help people organising events in multiple sites across the country, or multiple sites in one part of the country? What do you think comes next?
Generally, there's a consensus of collaboration, really. It's sharing information. We've got customers that now, their events are in a certain area. We do a lot of air shows that are kind of B2B, and then they have festivals on. But they're starting to collaborate by sharing information, so that they can actually see their customers traverse, and they can use that information for everything we've talked about, whether it's in intelligence, marketing intelligence, security intelligence, health and safety. So it's actually the technology being brought together to collaborate, not just across the events, but now, you know, with competitors, if you like, we're now getting more friendly and closer together to bring a benefit in. So I think the future is, again, it's more and more about staying and evolving the solutions, but actually collaborating so that we can extend the intelligence.
Right. It's a bit like a chicken and egg thing, but it's the, do you guys keep your eyes open for new technology and how that can help you, or do you find there's a problem and seek the technology out to make it easier?
It's a bit of both, really. I mean, obviously try and keep an eye on what's going on with shows like this to see what's the up-and-coming technology, but then quite often it's the day-to-day issues that you see in the office or on-site at the events that makes you think, you know, I really wish that we had a solution to this problem. I mean, one of the sort of biggest breakthroughs, I guess, that we had going back maybe a couple of years now, on a really basic level, is changing from using standalone Office software to cloud-based solutions such as Office 365, and Google Sheets has really been revolutionary, because when you're out and about switching between sites, you've got different teams working on the same project, trying to all share a spreadsheet and having synchronization problems, you don't know which version you're working on, it causes all sorts of issues. But when you can put that in the cloud, as Craig was saying, the cloud-based solutions, you know you're working on the latest version, you can have many people editing the spreadsheet at the same time and just basing your whole workflow around those rather than standalone files. It's sort of a stepping stone into a full event management platform, but at quite a low cost and an easy way for anybody to do that, really.
I was going to ask you how you're funded, how British Gymnastics is funded, and whether that's prohibitive in terms of wanting to get onto the next technology.
Yeah, I mean, we, as all organisations, we have limited funding. Yeah, everybody always wants more, so we have an amount of government grant funding. The majority of our money comes from membership, so British Gymnastics members. So we always have to be mindful of any investments that we're making best use of our members' money. We do make a small amount of income on badges, certificates, that kind of thing as part of our award schemes, but the vast majority is membership funds.
Craig, I'm right in saying I think that yours has become a sort of sell-out event now. So is that sort of demonstrated in the budgets you've got for the next sort of tranche of technology?
Yeah, so we operate at our maximum capacity at the moment and have done for the last 3 years. There is space in our site for more people potentially, so that's very much a kind of licensing issue in terms of increasing the size of the event, which is on the horizon. I think, we're really fortunate with Bournemouth Sevens. It has a really unique point of difference in the festival market, and we're really keen to retain that and not jeopardise that, and for it to become more of a kind of a traditional music festival, for instance. Yeah. So the sport is what makes Bournemouth Sevens so special. The atmosphere and the culture that's created by sporting people makes that happen. So, absolutely. We do have growth aspirations, but making sure that they stay in line with the model and the ethos that we have at the moment.
And Matt, in terms of, budget has got to be at the fore. It must be a word that you're fairly sick of, but your solutions all have to be grounded and affordable to make them viable, I guess.
Yeah, I guess being the solution provider, we've got the benefit of working with multiple and varying different clients. So we basically come at it from an element of a platform that can be configured for any type of client in events, and put the power in their hands. So rather than kind of design around a specific event, we design solutions for anything from a one-man band to a huge air show. And always thinking in mind that the client needs to be able to own that process. It's not for us to dictate how that works. It's the client's show, it's the client's business. So on the smaller scale, we effectively have off-the-shelf products, and we've built them by working with so many clients to know that is the process, but giving the flexibility to bend around the way they want to run their business. But on the other scale, then, we are a solutions provider that have a sizable development team, and we listen to our customers and develop around their business, and that isn't just one event. Their events and their businesses evolve year after year, event after event. If there's one thing the events industry does, it wants to move things on the next cycle. So we develop around that and listen to our customers, and therefore our solution remains current and is also the biggest client can help the smallest client.
It's certainly with music events, getting multiple locations is where the money's at, isn't it? Because you can get the same artists in different places and that sort of thing. So it's a problem that in an ideal world you'd see more of, just in terms of brute commerce, I guess. But what do you think is, we touched on what comes next, but how much does technology differ from a single site to multi-site? I mean, what's the different dimensions? What do you need to do differently from D2i's perspective to manage a multi-site from a single site?
For the design that we've done, the process for multiple events is generally the same. The key to it is centralising that information, but allowing the organisers to be able to look at it as a whole, or break it down right the way down to an individual person that happens to be on a site. Right the way down to, we're talking about people walking through a gate. Our scanners are real-time and zoned, so we can tell the organiser when someone's walked through the door for whatever reason, whether they just want a notification because that's an important person, or because the police have said red flag them, and the moment the red flag goes, they're pulled to one side and the police are dispatched. Yeah. So we basically kind of deliver those solutions to the organiser so that they can look at it at all the tiers, and it's year on year, so the centralisation allows the database, and you can analyse going backwards, and you can analyse the event year on year and see that progress, and you can look at it from different angles, all the elements we talked about, sales, finance, security, operations, and that then allows forward thinking. So you use the information and the centralisation to then forward think and manage the events on a day-to-day basis.
But it's the D word as well, it's data, isn't it? Which is something, I'm trying to shy away from as much as I possibly can. But do you both of you guys with Bournemouth and British Gymnastics, look at what data, what feedback you're getting and work out whether a site or an element of your event is not viable anymore or needs more resource because it's washing its face to a very clean sort of look?
Yeah, I mean, we always encourage feedback from both audience members to our events and the actual competitors and officials themselves, and we'll always take that into account when we move the events forward, when we're planning for future years. I mean, we're quite lucky in some respects that gymnastics has been moving on over the last few years since the 2012 Olympics, really, and the audience levels have really increased. So when we think back, our artistic championships a few years ago was in a small leisure centre, and now we're selling out the Echo Arena, we're live on BBC. So the whole way that we have to approach the planning of the event is different because it is a completely different scale of event. So yeah, I mean, all that kind of thing has to be taken into account. At the end of the day, the thing that sort of we're governed by is the fact that our competitions really are put on to service the sport and the performance pathway for people entering the Olympic Games, essentially. But we also, so we don't necessarily make a large amount of money. The majority of our events, they're purely to serve the gymnastics. But saying that, with some of our bigger events, we are starting to do that. So the whole financial model's changing quite a lot as well.
And Craig, your feedback you're getting from your audience as well, I guess, is that done through technology? That's not done with a ticker across on a piece of paper?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Data is key, and I think it's being able to analyse it and look at trends in terms of when tickets are being purchased or how much individuals are spending at different times of the weekend. All of that helps us, obviously, in the commercial industry, steer your event into a more successful place. We undertake, following our festival every year, we undertake a relatively robust feedback exercise. So we do that online. We have an online form that people can fill out. Often we need to incentivise people to do that, so we'll incentivise them with tickets or team entries for future years. But actually, on some occasions, we're using systems like SurveyMonkey. 30 to 40 questions. What brands did you see on site? How old are you? When did you buy your ticket? Why did you buy your ticket at that point? All of that information makes you develop your business model to fit the industry. Events are so fast changing. You can go from an event which is selling out 60,000 in 1 year to 2 years later is you're knocking it on its head. So you really need to try and stay ahead of the trend, and analysing that data and feedback is absolutely crucial in that, I'd say.
Brilliant. Any questions anyone would like to put to these guys? Because we're going to wrap this one up, I'm afraid. But anything you'd like to ask? Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. That was great.
Thank you.